So if you're a therapist in private practice, you have perhaps heard a phrase said in your therapy room recently that might evoke quite a strong reaction in you, possibly. The phrase is, I asked ChatGPT and it said. Is that something that you have heard from a client in your therapy sessions? Maybe you have heard it on numerous occasions. I'm not going to lie. When I first heard that from a client, my ego was rattled. I did feel a little bit threatened, and I did have a bit of a question about my capabilities, my abilities, and was I going to be replaced by a robot? So I just wanted to say that if you've had similar fears and similar emotions come up when a client has disclosed their use of ChatGPT, you are definitely not alone in that. But what I think is more important is that as therapists that we are actually having conversations about AI use in a really balanced and ethical way. Because if we're holding very, very strong views that might be anti-AI, we need to keep those in check and be mindful of the fact that when your client is presenting in the therapy room and disclosing their use of ChatGPT, that they have maybe found it to be an incredibly helpful experience. They have maybe used it in the decision-making process to then come and connect and meet with you as a therapist. So we need to just be aware of our own bias and our own views around it and think about how we can handle these conversations, because the reality is these conversations are going to come up more and more in the therapy room. The reason why I'm doing this video is I have noticed a trend that was happening on Instagram quite recently, and it's where therapists were creating content that was basically along the lines of why ChatGPT should never be your therapist. And whilst I completely agree that it should not be a replacement as a therapist, and whilst I get the sentiment of why therapists have been creating that content, I also am concerned or would be concerned about the fact that for many clients who are then reaching out and seeking therapy, that they have already been actively using ChatGPT. And perhaps for them, it has been incredibly helpful for them. And so if we're seeing content by therapists on social media that is very anti-AI, I would just be a little bit concerned about that. But that is just my personal opinion. But I get the sentiment of why the content is being created. But I think the stats, the most recent stats are that around 40% of people who are using ChatGPT are using it for mental health support. I imagine those figures are only going to keep increasing and that more and more people will be turning to this tool. And if we think about the context in how it is being used, that often for some people, turning to a platform like ChatGPT might be the first time that they are actually disclosing something that they don't feel comfortable to share with loved ones or people around them. That they're maybe having conversations about what they are experiencing, what is going on for them, and to help make sense of it, to help with the processing around it. And for some people, that might be incredibly helpful. And what we are seeing more and more with platforms like ChatGPT, and which I hope we will continue to see, is that those platforms may then be suggesting or recommending that for the individual using the platform that they might benefit in seeking therapy. And often for referrals that are coming through more and more through ChatGPT, and this is something I've definitely experienced myself with clients, is that they have told me that they've been having lengthy conversations back and forth about their difficulties with ChatGPT, and that conversation has then led them to ask for and seek recommendations for a therapist who specialises in that area. So what we're perhaps saying now is that clients who are coming into us in the therapy room are coming in already having done a lot of reflection, a lot of kind of assessing, a lot of consideration. And so they might come in with a perspective that has been consolidated through ChatGPT, and they might be very clear in that. And if you are a therapist that perhaps holds strong views about AI and its use, and you have concerns about it, and ethical concerns about it, which are completely and utterly valid, how might that feel for the client who's coming in, having done all this pre-work, having made these assessments, and they're sharing everything that ChatGPT has said and validated about what they're experiencing and about how they're feeling. And you're sitting here with the client for the first time with your views and your stance around AI. This is going to continue more and more. And what we're also going to see, I think, more is that not only will conversations in ChatGPT form some of the pre-consideration for a client coming into therapy, is that we will see that clients are also engaging in using ChatGPT in between their sessions with you. That they might take a while. Ordinarily, maybe they would do some journaling work in between sessions. Maybe they would chat with a friend about their therapy session or about what came up. What we will see, I think, increasingly is more people will take some of the key discussions and key insights that they have had with you in the therapy session and take that to ChatGPT and have a conversation with ChatGPT in between your sessions. So again, what might that bring up if your client is coming into sessions each week and they're raising some of ChatGPT's points of views or insights in conversations that you have had in the therapy room with them in the previous week. So of course, as therapists, we are aware that platforms like ChatGPT can be very convincing and can be very confident in the information that they give, but that it doesn't mean that it is always accurate, and that the information that it is giving back to the client may be missing context. It's giving responses just based on the information that they have entered. We do know that we can have instances around hallucination or just incorrect information being given. So we want to bring in for our clients that ability to make sense of the information that it is giving, and also some discernment around it. But what we do not want to do is we do not want to recoil at them mentioning that they are using AI. We don't want to launch into lectures about the privacy concerns, data concerns, hallucinations. We don't want to launch into anti-AI lectures with the client. And we don't want to be completely dismissive of some of the information perhaps that ChatGPT has given them, because I hate to say it, but sometimes ChatGPT can do a pretty good job of empathizing, reflecting back, mirroring language from the clients, and also perhaps providing an insight that the client themselves has missed, or that us as a therapist has missed as well. Remember that we are only human and that we miss things as well. We are fallible. And so there may be things that ChatGPT does quite well in identifying and helping a client with. So we want to be really mindful of not being completely dismissive of that. If your client is using ChatGPT actively, is finding it really helpful, and they're getting a sense from you that you are dismissive of it, or that you have real concerns about it, they may continue to use it, but they just may not disclose it with you, and that may impact the therapeutic alliance that you have. So 3 helpful responses that you might want to think about when your client discloses that they are using ChatGPT. First one, I know I'm teaching you to suck eggs here, but just be really curious. I'd be curious about what did the platform say? Like, what was ChatGPT's responses? What about that response felt particularly important for you? What did that bring up for you whenever ChatGPT? Really adopt an attitude of exploring rather than trying to correct. Really working alongside your client to explore other possible explanations, perhaps, for what ChatGPT has said, to maybe help the client to decipher what feels correct or what feels true for them, but what might not fit. Getting really curious about other things that may feel more aligned. And then finally, we want to explain in a gentle way informed use. So we do want to just check with your client about their understanding and their awareness of how they are using the platform, what information they are putting into the platform, having conversations about their awareness of their privacy, of what content is being entered, how it may be used, how it may be stored. Again, without judgment, that we're just ensuring that the client is informed and aware of their use and where that information might be used or might be processed. And that for them, they are then making an informed decision about how they're going to continue use of the platform. And we want to be really mindful that when we're doing that, we're not doing it in a shaming way, that we're just trying to be transparent and perhaps just giving them some considerations that they haven't thought about before so that they can be very considered and ethical in the way that they are going to engage with the platform moving forward. So I hope that this conversation has been helpful for you. Like I said, I think it is something that is going to come up more and more in the therapy room. And I think it's really important for us as practitioners to be aware of our own personal stance, our own personal views on it, and also just keeping in check when our own, maybe our fear or our own biases about AI could potentially interfere with the client and the client's confidence in coming and bringing these conversations to you. Yeah, and if there's anything that I would maybe bring in to add to this conversation is how can we maybe flip if we feel resistance around AI, if we feel really concerned about your client's use of AI, how can we perhaps just flip that into looking at how it could perhaps bring really rich content into sessions, how it can really stimulate great conversations with your client, further exploration, the discernment of the content that it's bringing in nuance into it as well, that rather than perhaps seeing that this is a threat to being concerned about it, how can we use it in a way that brings richness into the conversation with your client? So I hope that this conversation has been helpful. I'm going to do more content going forward around AI and therapy. I think it's going to become a even hotter topic than it is right now, but I think it's important that we have these conversations, that we explore the nuance around it. It is here, it is not going to disappear. So how can we have these conversations in a really balanced, ethical way and keeping in mind our clients' autonomy over their use of these platforms as well. But that's it for now. I will talk to you again soon.